Good day, I'm Scott Kinney with Discover Education, and this is our One Idea series. Today I am joined by Melinda George. Melinda is the president of the National Commission on Teaching and America's Future. So, welcome, Melinda. How are you?
Hi, Scott. Thanks for having me.
Melinda has I don't want to say a long history in education, but certainly a prestigious one. She started off as a teacher of fourth and fifth graders in DC Public. And then I think we first met when you were the executive director of CETA. And also, you have spent about 6 years as the senior director of education strategy at PBS. So now at NCTAF.
Right.
Tell us a little bit more about the mission of NCTAF.
Sure, thanks. And I think you just gave away how long the history is. But NCTAF is the National Commission on Teaching and America's Future. We're actually a not-for-profit organization that was started about 20 years ago around the idea that the way to change education in a positive direction is to really count on teachers, because they're the folks that are with students the most and have the most chance to really affect how they're doing, how they're learning, how they're handling their situations. So we think that teachers are really the solution in education, and that we need to support that teaching and make sure that the conditions are in place to allow them to do the job that kids need. What's interesting is in 20 years, I think the job of teaching has become even harder. And so the call, the need to really support teachers is greater than ever. And so we are putting out a new report this summer. The commission has come together and is really saying this is a moment in time when we need to identify what those conditions for great teaching are and help policymakers as well as district and state policymakers and leaders really help to put those changes in place.
That's great. I want to come back to the report at the end and let people know how they would get a hold of that.
Sure.
But one of the things that you talked about was equitable access to great teaching.
Right.
So as you look through your report and your experience, what are some of those things that administrators across the U.S. Need to be thinking about?
So equity and access is really the focus of our report. We know that kids today, all kids need great teaching. The kids that sometimes need it the most are those that are in hard to staff, low income, high stress kinds of schools. And so those kids, more than anyone, need the access to the greatest teaching that they can have. And so one of the things that we're looking at is what kinds of system changes need to take place. We don't think this is a question of teacher preparation or in-school development. We think that this has got to be a cohesive change throughout the system that really supports teachers so that they can work individually with every single student, beginning where that student is, understanding them, knowing where their opportunities and strengths are, knowing where their challenges are, and then working individually with that child to really push them to be ready to succeed as they leave the K-12 arena and start on whichever pathway they take in life.
One of the things that I know you're focused on is the conditions around how we support teachers in their classrooms, in their school settings, in their districts. What are some of those things that you're looking for and advocating for?
So the conditions are really interesting. One of the things at NCTAF that we talk about all the time is that we want the conditions that support teaching. We certainly are in favor of higher compensation. We're certainly in favor of elevating the profession of teaching. But we also think that there are some really important things that can be done within a school or within a district that can be done within existing budgets and within existing school systems that would really help teachers want to stay in teaching and be better able to do their jobs. So, for example, one of the things that we look at a lot is time. We have been part of the release of the Teaching and Learning International Survey put out by OECD. And one of the things that we know is that American teachers spend more time in front of the classroom than teachers from any other country. So about 27 hours a week in front of the classroom. Teachers also talk about the fact that they would like to co-teach and collaborate more in order to be able to serve the needs of their students. If you take these two pieces together, how much time they're spending in front of the classroom and this desire for collaboration and co-teaching, and we could rethink how the school day is shaped, we could really help to meet some of those needs. I joke sometimes that when I talk to my friends who aren't in education and I say American teachers teach more than any teachers in any other country, they say, well, what else would they do? Well, we know that what else they need to do is to really be thinking individually about each student, looking at their student work, talking with their peers at the school to find out how together they could meet some of the needs of those students. And we also ask teachers all the time, so how can we find that time? I think it's really easy to say teachers need more time. It's really hard for a district or a school to figure out how to get it. And so one of the things that we look at are what are the roles of a teacher that are essential for a teacher to be doing? And that is the kind of work that we're talking about. Yeah. Working with the students, working with their peers. Are there things that could be given up? Do they need to be doing lunch duty? Do they need to be doing recess duty? Are there things that don't require a teacher's expertise? I think the other thing we could look at is the school day. Some of the schools have been really effective in figuring out about block scheduling so that teachers can work together with their peers within a classroom. And it also leaves bigger periods of time when teachers across a grade level or across a subject level can get together and talk with one another. I think it's got to be a priority for school leaders and for district leaders to figure out how to find some time to encourage teachers to work together.
So I have one other question for you, but I don't want to lose that thought. If I'm an administrator, does NCTAF provide resources, or can you connect me to places that you're seeing that are doing that effectively?
Absolutely. So one of the things that we're doing in our report that will come out in August is we're looking exactly for that. Where are examples that a school district or a school itself could look at and say, well, wow, I could do that. And so we know that this is happening across the country, that there are places that are effectively using time, and we want to provide a roadmap for schools and districts. And so with our report, it will be loaded with exactly those kinds of examples, as well as we're hoping to have a technology companion along with it, where you could actually link to some of those school districts and sites and understand more about how they were able to do it. What champions did they need? How long did it take? What's been the outcome as a result?
Excellent. Melinda, real quickly, the other thing that I know you're looking at is kind of that relationship. Oftentimes we think about teacher preparation separate from K-12 professional development, and you're looking at that relationship. Can you talk about why that's so critical and what you're seeing as a trend across the country related to that?
Yeah, great question. NCTAP is really looking at the whole continuum of teaching. If we want to improve the conditions for teaching, we need to get rid of some of the silos that have existed for so long in education. And one of those places where we see the most dramatic sort of handoff from one section to the other is between teacher preparation and new teacher induction. We know that 80 to 90% of teachers come out of the schools of education and into the districts that are nearby those schools of education. And so one of the things that we really want to encourage districts and schools to do is to build partnerships with their local schools of education so that it's not a handoff, but rather a seamless working together to help a new teacher who's just left the school of education and entered on their first day have a real system of support between the district and the school of education. The other thing that I think is really important, sorry, I'll just add one more thing, is that we should be looking, districts and schools of education should be working together from the point of recruitment into a school of education all the way through recruitment into a first year of teaching. And the reason I say this is that school districts have a really good sense of what their pipeline needs are going to be, where they're going to have needs for different subject areas, and also where they're going to have needs for teachers to be in schools that they can really help students accelerate and move forward. If we can build that partnership from recruitment all the way through teacher preparation and include residencies where these young teachers to be are going to be actually experiencing the kind of school and the kind of subjects and the kind of conditions where school districts hope they will end up, then they will succeed much in a much greater way when they're actually teachers of practice in those schools.
Excellent. Melinda, if I'm an educator, how do I get more information on the study and the commission report when it comes out?
So our website is www.nctaf.org. We will do a big press release. The report is slated to come out in mid-August, and so we'll do a big press announcement. We'll also have a distribution list, and anybody can go to the NCTAF website and sign up to be on the distribution list so that you'll get an announcement when the report is released. And we also, I will add, are looking for examples of just the kinds of things that I've talked about today. And so I welcome getting in touch with me at NCTAF and sending me some of those examples so that we can highlight them for other schools and districts to learn from.
That's fantastic. So Melinda George is the president of the National Commission on Teaching in America's Future. Melinda, thanks so much for joining today.
Thank you, Scott.
Take care.
You too.